Good evening and welcome to Smart Entrepreneurship Decoded on Transcontinental Times. Last week, I received some feedback that my repetitive sense of dressing with the same suit all the time, some people are finding it difficult and they requested me to make a change. Now, I cannot at this age be doing casual, so I have shifted to formals, but Indonesian formals. So here I am in all my batik glory, and I hope I have satisfied you in that respect. Funding for startups is a tricky issue. We have heard from investors of all kinds on this show and entrepreneurs at various stages of their journey on this show. But we have not yet heard from a startup that has raised funds in a very unconventional way. A journey that is slightly longer, more fulfilling, but very different. Tonight, let's hear from our guest, Ramnath Sundaram, who comes from a company that has a unique name and its product is named even more uniquely. Welcome, Ramnath. I would first like you to explain
Hi.
the name of your company, the logic behind it, and how you created the name of the brand.
Yeah. So, hi, Nalin. Thank you for your kind words. The last time we met, I told you about the company we had founded along with like-minded people who wish to work in the healthcare sector. So, what is our company? Our company is called Nurture Health Solutions India Private Limited. Nurture is a combination word. It's knowledge with a focus on your future. We believe that knowledge economy is going to be the future. While we carried nurture for some time, we found that people find it very difficult to associate nurture with healthcare. So we came up with another coined word called "How are you?" So our brand is HOWRU. So when someone meets another person, the first thing that they ask is "How are you?" So we felt that we wanted to capture that emotion, and we called ourselves "How are you?" So everything branding, whatever we do, goes in the "How are you?" brand.
So you have been, I remember you started around 2014-15, and we met
Correct.
shortly thereafter. Uh,
Yeah.
and it's 6-7 years now.
Yeah.
You being in the healthcare sector may have the pandemic may have helped you. But for all our viewers, let's start with
Yeah.
what exactly do you do? What does the company do?
Yeah. So we are working in the cusp of technology and healthcare, if I may say so. Many times we've asked, why did you choose healthcare? There are many options that were why did you choose healthcare? And typically our answer has been healthcare is a credence service. When you talk about credence service,
Mhm.
healthcare is a credence service where the quality of the service cannot be observed by the consumer after making the purchase, making it very difficult to assess the utility. We did a Twitter sentiment analysis and we found that
Mhm.
there are a lot of negative sentiments for phrases like, what is my diagnosis? Is my diagnosis right? Words such as misdiagnosis, depressed, nervous, tensed, all of this had a very unpleasant, low confidence sentiments that were, thrown out by Twitter. So when we asked, what are those things that few people are searching for in the internet? People came and said that, these are some of the things that they're searching. They're not searching positive things in healthcare, right? So why? So if you see, healthcare today is a completely broken kind of thing. It is neither healthy nor is it caring nor is it a system. It is very heavily provider centric, where everything is about the patient but without the patient. The model is organized around disease management pathways, where a patient followed a defined pathway rather than a health journey that had help define.
So
It's a
your
biomed.
company
Yeah.
so your company does what? Do you provide second opinions online or do you work in the
So we
middle? How
actually combine. So we yeah. So we've understood the problem to be, doctors are facing a certain amount of problems. The patients are facing amount of problem. So where is the gap? What are the gaps that we have to address? Right. So if I go to a doctor and say, doctor, start using a system. So doctors are like, there are dime a dozen system. What is it that different that you're giving me? If I go to a patient and say use our system, then the patient says there are so far too many systems available. So what is it? So we have created an ecosystem where all these things work in tandem. So for example, for a patient side, we have something. We have a patient history collection tool, which is artificial intelligence driven. It has about 36,000 questions, and it is very iterative. So when you start answering those questions, the questions are very iterative. They ask you very specific questions about the conditions that you've put. This report goes to the doctor. So the doctor, before seeing you, knows exactly what he's dealing with. Doctors complain a lot that they don't have time to actually listen to the patients. They only have 10 minutes, 15 minutes to actually look at the patient. But when they get this report beforehand, they have enough time to go through the problems, and they can ask. The conversation between the doctor and the patient is much more at a very different level
So,
than what is happening today.
so you facilitate a doctor-patient engagement at a level higher than it
Engagement.
would normally be. Uh,
Yes.
okay. And so who
Yeah.
pays you?
So
Is it the doctor or the patient?
the patient pays us because the so if you look at our business is like a Uber, right? So we are the taxi service provider. The patient is the person who sits on the taxi, and the doctor is, sorry to say, the driver. Intermediaries don't pay. The end customer, who's the patient, pays us. Uh, this is a system. So what happens is when there is a discovery made, the doctor then decides whether this case has to go to a panel. So it can. So today also the healthcare is broken up. It is in silos. Like a gastroenterologist works only on in that area. A neurologist works only in that area. But the health or the human body doesn't separate us by departments. It is one human body. So when there is an issue, and we work in the complex, complicated, and rare diseases space, and usually here the systems are multi it is connected, the multi systems are connected, and we need various sets of doctors to look at the same case, which is not happening today. So today you have a back pain, you go to a gastroenterologist, or you go to a orthopedic. Orthopedic looks at your X-ray. He's trained to look at the X-ray. He looks at the X-ray, says everything is fine. Maybe you have a stress, and maybe your sitting position is not proper. I'll give you 10 days treatment. Things will be okay. Then after 10 days with all the heat pads and all that, you will feel better. But 6 months down the line, still the problem comes back again. Then somebody advises you go to a gastroenterologist. So you go to a gastroenterologist. Then the gastroenterologist does a scan, and then he finds some stones in your gallbladder, and he says, "Sorry, you've come very late. If you'd come 6 months back, I could have saved your gallbladder." But why is this happening? Who? Why didn't the patient go to the gastroenterologist in the first place? Had the patient come to us, because of the way which we diagnose, our system would have prompted him to go to a gastroenterologist, because the system is looking at much more detailed information than a advisor is looking at. Today, we
Okay.
take advice from our friends saying, who is the good doctor? So somebody near my house could be a good doctor, but is he is he the actual correct doctor to look at my case? So we act as a bridge between providing an advice to a patient as to whom you should see. I have an expert location system in terms of one,
Mhm.
expertise, two in terms of location, three in terms of cost. So I also have to look at, is the patient affording enough to pay for a doctor,
Okay.
right? So these are some of the things that we already have taken care in our algorithms. So the moment the patient enter his information, his details, his demographic, his things like that, and then he puts his problem, then the problem is looked at by one of my doctor, and then my doctor decides what needs to be done. He says, okay, I need to have a panel of three more different doctors. Then we pull in the panel discusses this case, we make a treatment plan, we give the treatment plan to the patient, we give an option to the patient as to what various, there are about three or four different plans. Okay, your case needs a surgery, or your case can be managed with medication. Your quality of life may go down, but your longevity is increased. So there is always this question between quality of life and longevity, right?
So
So we address those problems, uh,
yeah,
exactly what the customer is needing,
yeah,
or
I get
where
that,
the
and
customer is needing.
it's a
Yeah.
very interesting model. So
Yeah.
did the company start like that 7, 8 years ago and is still doing the same thing, or did you pivot at some time? There was some changes.
Yes, actually, we wanted to provide this service entirely to the doctor as a aid for him to make treatments.
Okay.
But then we met, a couple of industry experts, and then we were told that, again, I'm making some tall claims, but this is my experience. We were told that doctors will not pay, so don't waste your time trying to sell anything to the doctors in their domain. You can sell them a BMW, they will probably buy a BMW, but if you tell them that I'm going to help you make better decisions, they will get offended. They will definitely not pay. They don't even buy, Landsets or things like that. It's very, very few doctors who actually subscribe to those. So again, doctors is more skill, right? And if you see, they are also having a lot of information overload. A lot of things have changed. People, every day there's a new test which comes up. Every day there's a new medication. Every day there's a new discovery of a new disease. So they have to keep up with a lot of information.
So you
Uh,
pivoted from
we
a
said
doctor centric model to a patient centric
to a
model.
patient centric. So then we pivoted saying, okay, now if we were to put this model, make it more from a customer standpoint, will the customer willingly pay us? And of course, the customer is willing to pay. I have proofs which I can share, or I can give you some use cases where can I talk about use cases without
No,
identifying
absolutely,
the so okay,
absolutely.
so yeah, so we had this young boy who's 7 8 years old, who was referred to us, and he had a problem with gait, so he could not get up on his own, he could not do things on his own, so his
Hmm.
parents were getting worried. His father was a very well placed gentleman, and he always was worried about how his social crowd is going to take up to this kind of an issue. uh, then we did our tests, and we found out that he has a specific one particular type of disease called Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And then we during our research we also found out that there is a institute, I mean, in the Institute of Science there is a one unit which is focusing only on DART. So we reached out to them, and then we found a doctor in Chennai who sees such cases. So we took the patient to the doctor. We made the doctor see the patient, and then so what happened here? It took about 7 years for them. It took about 6 years for them to even figure out that it was Duchenne muscular dystrophy. The doctor in Chennai told me that if this child had been brought to me when he was young, when he was like 2 years old, because the symptoms show up as early as 2 years, he could have been put on steroids, and he could have his lot of his muscular functions could have been saved by the time we went there. And today the boy is doing fine. We also found out that the reason for this particular is a particular DNA exon deletion in the DNA, 17 strand. So we found out that there is a organization in Australia who are doing research for this particular medicinal research for this case. And now we have put that boy on clinical trial. So the medicines have been supplied from Australia, been administered to the boy in the local clinic, and he's showing improvement. So what typically would have been a 13 14 year the boy would have survived, we have pushed his age to maybe 20 22 years. If there is this treatment succeeds, maybe he'll have a long and a normal life without his muscles getting dystrophied even more.
So I'm sure that is very gratifying, and that's absolutely fantastic work without a doubt.
Yeah,
But you are a for-profit company, right? And you've been around now
correct,
7 8 years.
correct.
How do you scale this? Because you're largely Bangalore centric, right? How does it easily scale to other cities, or will you are you happy keeping it within
No,
Bangalore?
we have to scale. So we have to scale. See, here the thing here is how much of the doctor network that I'm building, because this is a online model. So the moment I go online, the moment I start soliciting people online, there are requests going to come to me. Will I be able to a serve all of the patients with the same efficiency that I've been serving them today? B is, do I have enough doctors to look at these cases? Do I have enough specialists to look at these cases? See, for example, we have one particular type of. Uh, you won't believe, Nalin, if I said this, that we've had patients from the US who are not, certain types of diseases are not covered by the US insurance. They don't mind paying a few rupees to get a diagnosis from an Indian doctor. So The market is there. We only have to try and see how we can scale this to a bigger market. So Southeast Asian market is there. We have Africa as a huge market. So market is there.
Okay. And you have largely been bootstrapped. You have your
Correct.
co-founders largely bootstrapped. But whenever you
Correct.
have raised capital, you have raised it in a very unconventional manner. How about walking
Yeah.
us through that and why that route versus a traditional funding route?
Yeah. So, Nalin, as I told you in the beginning, this business requires a very in-depth understanding of how the healthcare system works. It is not a convenience model. So I am not trying to do medicine delivery kind of a model, because that becomes more of a logistics problem. Here, what I'm trying to resolve is actually the way in which the doctor diagnoses a disease, the way the doctor interacts with the patient, the the empowerment that I'm giving to the patient in terms of he owning up to his decisions, and look for a end result. So here I need people who are very invested in this particular type of business. See, I cannot go to a conventional investor, because he's going to start questioning me about what is the typical online business metrics, right? How
Did
many
you
customers
approach any?
came, how many.
Did you approach any
we
and have
have
this
we
kind of
have
experience?
we have but see, the thing is, the so that is the reason we stopped going to any of these guys, because everybody would try to throw us off gear, saying their main motive was, how am I going to make this value increase value, and how am I going to exit the customer, exit the investor. So am I going to do, you know, round one, round two with so much of exit, and then they were only talking about financial, gains or
Mhm.
financial motivators, rather than looking at the wholesome picture of how I'm going to improve the medical science itself. See, for example, I've had students who do a lot of content work with me. Students who finish their MBBS and who are going to do their MD. They have a 2 year, 3 year gap. So they work with me in doing a lot of content work. And they come back and tell me, sir, this work that we do is actually helping us to study. So we are actually doing a lot of research, we are studying. So it is actually helping me to prepare for my exams. So over a period of time, when I start training the existing doctors to do a diagnosis in a certain way, rather than the conventional way, I'm going to build better doctors. I'm going to build in 10 years, 15 years time frame, I'm going to have doctors who are looking at data to make a decision, who are looking at, rather than sticking with their own domains, they will start looking at cross domains and see how we can benefit the patient as a whole. But none of the investor comes, unfortunately, the people who we went to never came with this kind of a thing to the table. Most of them were, what are you going to, how are you going to scale it, what are the different markets you're going to go, how many people are you going to hire, what is going to be your working model, when can you exit us, how much liquidity can you, how much dilution can you do, and when you can exit us out. So then we took a step back and said, look, we need somebody to be invested in this particular type of business. So we started approaching doctors. These doctors, as I was telling you, there's one very good doctor advisor of ours who is the head of the department for IGOT. So he is invested with us. Then there are a couple of doctors who are from the US who have invested with us. They are not big ticket investments, but they're very, no, I wouldn't say they're very small ticket also. They're pretty sizable investments, which are enough for us to run our day-to-day business. Uh, Now, when I develop this ecosystem, I am going to the next step of asking the investment from a well invested, investor, not the person who is wanting to make profits out of it. So
So
this has been our
basically,
journey from,
yeah,
yeah.
you will needed a patient investor because you have a long.
Patient, yeah, patient and invested in the domain. He need to know how this domain works, because see, even if for discovery of a medicine or discovery of, apart from the COVID vaccine, any other vaccine has taken 10 to 15 years time. They need to do research, they need to develop the medication, they need to do clinical testing. So anything to do with direct medical delivery will take time to develop as a science.
So, you were in corporate life. In fact,
Yeah.
you and I have worked together 23 years ago.
Yes.
And it has been fascinating to see your journey since then. And you continued in corporate life for quite some time.
Yeah.
And then you made this shift.
Yeah.
When you look back,
Yeah.
would you do it again? And
Yes, definitely. Because see, this the problem. So actually, for any person who wants to come back or who wants to do so, usually like uh, you talk about midlife. I wouldn't say crisis. Somebody who's reached 40, 42 years say, "What am I doing with my life? Every day, I'm past 20, 25 years. I've been doing the same thing, going to office, doing files, doing this, doing that. There's no fulfillment. Like an entrepreneur should have some problem to solve, be invested in the problem, be able to live and breathe the problem on a daily basis, and be able to be focused on the problem in such a manner that there is a, of course, a financial outcome. Everybody looks at financial outcome. B, something beyond financial outcome. Is there a fulfillment? Is there something that you have built? Is there something that you can leave as a legacy? See, all these tools are not new. They are not, except for one or two which we have actually done on our own. Most of this is available, but even these tools are available only in silos. So one tool does only one work. So nobody has sat and integrated the entire thing to give a patient an end-to-end feel. So we are there for a patient from the beginning of when his disease is discovered to the time that he gets treated and becomes all right. We are there. I have another case too. This is okay. If we have time, I have another one small case. So this case is again a very unique case. We found uh, a 18-year-old boy who started developing a lot of eyesight problems. He started not being able to stand properly. He would get blackouts and all that. So he'd come to us. So his father kept on blaming him, saying he's a very intelligent boy, but he's very lazy. He doesn't study, so he doesn't score marks. But the problem is the boy was actually having some health issues. He came to us. We looked at him. We took him to an orthopedic surgeon who actually looked at the case. He did his initial investigations. The moment he finished, he called my partner and he said, "Look, I am suspecting something beyond eye problem. It could be neurological. Can you get a CT scan done?" So we got a CT scan done. We are also lined up with a neurologic surgeon to have a look at it. He said, "You come tomorrow." We sent him the CT scan. He called immediately back and he said, "Can you bring the patient now?" So we rushed the patient to the hospital. He called the parents. He said, "Look, there is a 3 millimeter or some big, tumor sitting in the middle of his head. If I don't do the surgery, the boy will I can't guarantee the life of the boy. If I do the surgery, if I go a little left, he might lose his memory. If I do a little right, he might lose his, he might get paralyzed. And if I don't do anything, he might die. So you don't have a choice. The patient has to undergo operation." So he did the operation, and also the patient had a lot of problem. He had diabetes, he had gait problem, lot of issues. He had weight. The moment this tumor got taken out, ideally, actually what was happening is that tumor was actually pressing on his pituitary gland, and that was causing a lot of other issues. The moment tumor got removed, all his other problems got resolved. He lost weight. His sugar came back to normals. So this is something that we did. So no other person would have either advised the patient and his family that this needs to get done. Nobody would have worked with a orthopedic doctor, a neurologist, and a lab in between to make all these things happen. Uh, so I don't think anybody else would have done in a business model. They would have done it for a friend, but nobody is sitting and doing research for a patient. So I'm trying to solve the problem for a patient, sitting and doing research, finding out is there somebody who does this work, calling them, getting them
yeah,
to go there. So this all services is not there in the market today, and I
fantastic.
want to automate this. I want to. So now we are providing this as a service, but I'm also creating products to do this on its own. So the patient goes in, he puts his issue, it goes to a doctor. So it all happens in the back end, and it all happens through the system. And somewhere the AI picks up and starts throwing out information to the right people to do the
Actually,
right things. Yeah,
what you just said about automation will excite investors no end. Take it from me. But
yeah,
just picking on that, moving
yeah,
from a job to entrepreneurship is not easy, right?
yeah,
Instead of doing one role in a large company and
Yeah.
not being close to the client or seeing the outcome is one thing, but
Yeah.
being everything from president to peon and displaying all the skills is tough.
Hmm.
For
Hmm.
you personally, which was the one thing that was the toughest when you took up entrepreneurship, the toughest challenge you had to face?
So one is the personal problem of convincing your family that, look, I'm not going to get my monthly paychecks.
Hmm.
We have to start living frugally, and this is something that I want to do in my life. You guys have to support me. And it is very individual and it is very personal, Nalin, because in for me, I have a very small family. I mean, I only have one kid. We very accommodative guy, and of course my wife is also working, so I could take the plunge because I had a backup plan. My wife was working. She was actually supportive, saying you continue to do what you want to do because what you're saying excites is very exciting. So you're going to touch a lot of people, you're going to do a lot of things, so I think you should do that because that is where your heart lies. So one is family support is required.
Okay.
Second is your own personal conviction as to will you be able to make sense of what you've done. Is this the right thing? So there is no right way, there is no right answer. You have to be focused enough to, you also have to meet the right people. So if you want to do something and if you don't going to the right, if you're not going through the journey of trying to meet the right people, that thing will not happen. So you'll have to make, so you will have to start attending conferences, you'll have to start going to, start saying, okay, reach out to the doctors and say, look, I have this plan, do you think it will work, what are your
So
inputs?
basically, you have to work a lot
So
of
we
skills
have
and
to work a lot. Yeah, and then to reach a stage where, see, again, Nalin, if it was something like a delivery model, if it is something like a brick and mortar or a delivery model where I am saying, okay, this is the thing, this is the problem, so the problem is smaller. I am not demeaning any company. Suppose you took a company that delivers food. So what is the problem that they are trying to solve? They are trying to solve the problem of some person getting a food from his favorite restaurant, getting it delivered to him. He's sitting at home and ordering the food, and the food comes to him. This is a small problem. But look at the problem that we are trying to solve. We are trying to solve, something which is very cerebral in nature. There is a whole group of people who have become masters in that particular field, and we are challenging them, saying, "Boss, you're not doing the right job. You're there are 26% misdiagnosis is there. 56% of people seek second opinion, and there are so many things that goes wrong. People are not happy. They are saying doctor charging a lot of money. Doctor saying I don't have time. So where does this end? So this is not only a convenience problem. I would say this is a more of a, so health issue itself is a big, people get put off by a health issue. And if there is a family in which there is a child having a rare disease, then that family is doomed. If they don't have right information, the right guidance, the family is doomed. Financially they are doomed, emotionally they are
so
doomed.
yeah. So we are completely out of time. I'm going to shoot my last question at you. So
Yeah.
how difficult is the mental side of entrepreneurship? Because I have been into entrepreneurship. I know it's tough, and
Yeah.
the ups and downs emotionally are quite roller coaster like.
Yeah.
Did you also go through that? Do you go through that on an ongoing basis?
Yeah, so Nalin, I'll take about 5 minutes to
Sure, please
answer
do.
this question, right? See, an entrepreneur has to have three things for him to succeed. One is a dissatisfied presence. If there is something that is uncomfortable and you're not liking something and you want to solve it, because of that problem not being there, you have a vision for the future, and then you are in a position to take the first two steps. So if you are having only a dissatisfied presence, you become a cynic. If you are having a dissatisfied presence and if you have a vision for the future, then you become a professor. But if you are ready to jump in and dirty your hands, take the first few steps, do something about it, then you become an entrepreneur. So first is identify a problem, resolve, I mean, try to be with the problem. See, I compare entrepreneurship to a wildlife photographer. There is a guy who's standing with a camera trying to take a wildlife picture. He has to dissolve himself in that location, right? He has to put camouflage, he has to become invisible. He has to be able to focus the problem. So if he's taking a picture of a lion, he has to be able to focus the lion. He has to make sure that all the other noises are cut out. Then he has to be behind the camera. He cannot stand in front of the camera and try to take a picture. So the entrepreneur has to be like that. He has to be focused. He has to dissolve in the domain, and he has to be behind the scenes and observe and be able to make the change. Emotionally, it has been very, very satisfying for me because of the domain in which I am. Uh, because of the 2 3 cases, I have got so many cases that has given us so much of satisfaction of resolving a problem for somebody who is completely a stranger just because of doing good. And of course people are willing to pay money. This the gentleman whom we resolved this gate problem, the neurological problem. His father came. He's a very big officer. He said, "Was you have actually?" His mother keeps calling my partner Lord Krishna. You are our Lord Krishna. You have helped us because you have saved my child and stuff like that. So that is something beyond money, and some kind of a satisfaction that comes beyond money. I would put this entire journey as a very satisfying one, and of course, more to come. I want to attract more younger doctors to take up this as their profession,
Ramnath,
trying to see the whole picture.
it has been fascinating speaking with you. Your development from the time we knew each other and worked to now is absolutely astounding. The work
Thank
you're
you so much,
doing,
Nalin.
I applaud you for that. Not many entrepreneurs keep that kind of larger picture, larger vision, and patience with their ventures. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. I wish you the very best for your future and very best to all your founders. Thank you.
Thank you, Nalin. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Thank
Thank
you.
you.